Hi, I'm Una. You're very welcome to my channel. In this video, I show how you can use a die which cuts and embosses a floral image to cut that image from two different colours of cardstock and then piece them together to create a lovely focal point on a card. This can be done very simply, as in my second card, or you can take it up a notch by adding colour to the die cuts with alcohol markers or whatever colouring medium you prefer. You can also add clear embossing powder for a whole new look. The die that I'm using is a Cuttlebug one, a flower vine. You could use any die. These are other dies that would work from my stash. The die just needs to cut and emboss. And I cut and embossed these two pieces from teal cardstock and pink. And then I checked my swatches to see what alcohol markers I could use to add depth of colour. I started with green turquoise, but then checking my swatch, I moved to blue turquoise. And I was getting a depth of colour, but it wasn't intense enough, so I decided to go again, and I decided this time on a jade green, a JG6 in my Spectrum Noir range. And this was just perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. Then I used coral shades for the pink flowers. I started with 3, but that when it dried, the colour really died back. So I moved on and I ended up using quite a lot of markers. I moved on to a 5 and then a 6 and then 7 and 8. And I even ended up bringing out my number 9 just to give that extra depth. I was happy then with the way it was shaping up, so I cut them all out. And even cutting out those tiny little bits, they can make such a difference, those little bits, really jazz up a project. So I cut out centres for the flowers from an Xcut punch, that's actually a daisy punch, and then put tiny black dots. Now I spent quite a while cutting up these daisy images and applying them to the various size of flowers, deciding where to put them, and I decided I'd put two layers on each flower. So I adhered them. And then I decided to do something I hadn't planned on, but in the end I was absolutely delighted with it. I embossed the flowers with clear embossing powder. I smooshed them onto my Versamark pad and then covered them with clear embossing powder and heated up till smooth and melted. And I repeated that process. And I really liked the way they were looking. So I decided to go ahead and do that for all of my flowers. Now I learned as I went along, I learned to dip rather than pour the embossing powder. That speeded things up. And in the end, I realised that after I heated it the first time, I really didn't need to smoosh in the Versamark a second time. The hot piece picks up powder the second time. And I discovered if the tweezer leaves a mark that I could get rid of it by heating it up again. And eventually I discovered that I didn't have to hold it with the tweezers at all. So I embossed them all right down to the tiniest piece. And then I decided that I would do the leaves as well. So I heated it up, took a look, and yes, I was quite pleased with that. But I thought one of the leaf clusters looked as if it wasn't quite right. Now, I wish I had left it. It was really just fine. And you wouldn't need to do this any more than once. But I went ahead to try and fix the leaf cluster that didn't look right. I ended up deciding I had to do the whole lot because that one wasn't looking the same. So tidied up the embossing powder when I was finished. I tried not to get it on the flowers so much so that the flowers would adhere well. Using high-tack, fast-tack glue, I used that in a Gina K bottle. And I pick up the image with my fingers to make sure I can squeeze from the sides to make sure the flowers are adhered, excuse me, properly in place right on top of the green image. So I'm very pleased with that. The sentiments I got from 2 sets, this Mama Elephant Occasional Labels and the Sugar Pea Designs, Sending Smiles and Sending Love, from that. That's called Everyday Sentiments, I think. I list all my supplies down below. Now, there are 2 things I want to say here. First of all, I experimented with several black inks and they didn't work very well. I used my favourite things, Extreme Black, and I used my Archival Black. And they didn't work, like I say. And I found that VersaFine Onyx Black ink is the best ink to use to get a crisp image with these occasional labels. And the second tip is not to use stamps from different companies at the same time in your stamping tool. If they're of a different thickness, they won't work very well together, and that's why I ended up cutting these out and having to stamp them separately in the end. I trimmed a white border around the occasional label, so then my 3 sentiments were ready. The card base is a Papermania, and I'm applying a stencil over top. It's a Crafter's Workshop brick wall stencil. It creates a lovely pattern on the background, and together with this grout grey from My Favourite Things, a very, very light grey, it's going to create a very subtle background. And I just love using this Make Art station, and the magnets I find are a wonderful alternative to using removable tape. Much, much easier to use. I can check the progress of my inking. Really wonderful. Delighted I made that purchase. So just playing around with the positioning of my elements, and I'm ready to adhere everything down. I start with the Think Happy Thoughts, lovely sentiment. And then I put some little bits of foam tape and lots of glue on the back of this, and spent a good while making sure it was all pressed down. Snipped off the bit hanging over the edge, adhered the remaining sentiments, Sending Love and Sending Smiles. You can see I matted those sentiments on black card as a nice contrast to the occasional label below. Card done. The second card was much simpler and was put together much faster. Red card, green card, just use one marker to add a little bit of depth of colour to the green. I changed up the sentiments, added a Nuvo Shimmer to the flowers. The daisy stamp punch I used again, an orange card, this time little black lines and some enamel dots, black enamel dots from Ranger. And so that's a very pretty card, but much simpler to make. And here's the embossed one again. Really pleased with that too. A very, very different look. So that's the video. Thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you'll come back to Una's Crafty Cards. Please subscribe. Maybe you'd like to watch some more of my videos. I would love if you would like this video. That's really important for the success of my channel. And if you'd like to leave a comment, I would love to talk to you. Bye for now. All the best. Take care.